with Texas starting voting early for that state's primaries in the middle of February and West Virginia beginning in April, that leaves Democrats with only about 1 month, maybe 2, to pass the voting rights bill for the midterm elections. And that's if they can get Build Back Better done right away. Joining me now to discuss is the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign and president of Repairers of the Breach, Bishop William Barber. First, Bishop Barber, I just want to get your response to Manchin basically reneging on his commitment.
Well, it sounded like he used to play spades. We talked about reneging. Of course, when you renege, you got something taken from you. He's not a reneger, he's a liar. And he's been a liar for a long time. He's been a liar long before this year. He lied to John Lewis and said he supported the For the People's Act that John Lewis wrote. He signed off on it. He was a co-sponsor. He lied and said that he was for 15 of living wages. When he got a chance to vote on it, he went the other way. He's lied and said he wanted to fix voting rights. He's had since 2013 when the Supreme Court gutted voting rights Section 5. It's been since 2013 that it could have been fixed. He could have introduced. So I don't know why people thought he was something that he'd already proven he was. But then again, it's not just Manchin. I'm writing a piece now called "Who's Killing Voting Rights and Build Back Better and Possible Growth in This Country." Because Build Back Better is just a step. It's not all that we need. We need $10 trillion, and we need all of the voting rights, and we need them now because, as you said, most of the states have already passed laws, and the redistricting has been done. And if you don't get these bills done now, they didn't get done now, then what happens is you can't grandfather. He could actually sign off on voting rights next year, but he would have still won because he would have delayed it until all of the bad bills have been passed and all the bad redistrictings have been passed. But Charles, I'm going to go down, like Dr. King said, who killed Jimmy Lee Jackson? We got to talk about the whole thing. People, progressive groups, some rights groups that didn't mobilize, said that they ought to be in the back room. Those who set these false deadlines like December, our deadline is not December, it's when we win. I want to challenge progressive to stop saying this is about the president's plan. It's about people. That's the narrative. This is not Biden versus Manchin. This is about poor people, millions of children, millions of low-wage workers, millions of healthcare workers. That has to be the narrative. It's Manchin against his own people. It's Manchin against poor and low-wealth people in his state and around the country. And so what we have to do is be careful that we are actually even those of us that are fighting for the right thing, are saying the right things and organizing and have to be honest. Like Dr. King one time was honest. He even said black preachers and black organizations were a part of when Jimmy Lee Jackson got killed, particularly when they didn't stand strong, didn't stay committed to the things they were born to be committed to, and did not fight the long haul. Mm-hmm. Today, Charles, is 366 days. You'd had 366 days left in the Montgomery bus boycott movement. Today is, but you would have 366 more days left. I believe my math is right, maybe a little off. My point that I'm trying to make is this whole business of that we're going to do one thing or one rally has always been flawed. That's why we kept mobilizing, and we're not finished. This coming Friday, we're calling together clergy and economists and poor and low-wealth people for we refuse to accept there's no room in this democracy press rally. We can't do something we want to do to COVID, to lay out how we're going to intensify now even the more on Manchin, not back up, because December was never our deadline. Victory is our deadline.
So you seem to be suggesting that you don't think the fight is over. There's new reporting out tonight that Joe Biden talked to Manchin yesterday. That there's reporting about how the language at the White House has cooled down. Manchin went on the radio today, so his problem was not with Joe Biden, but with some of the White House staff. Do you still hold out hope that Joe Biden and Joe Manchin can work this out somehow and come to some sort of deal, even if it is not the deal that we have on the table right now?
No, I think they didn't gotten to something. I think it's on us. I think impacted people have got to stand up. Clergy have got to stand up. We've got to put folk around and down his street in front of his place. We've got to make this a movement, and we've got to say until we win. And we've got to tell the story of what's really happening. We got to show the cost if it doesn't. That's, we cannot accept these false deadlines. And you see, Manchin is playing an old Southern segregationist trick. Well, the Southern segregationists say, well, I would vote to change these laws, but somebody offended me. That's as old as Jim Crow politician. What we know is he hates it when he is shown to be a person who's hurting minors and hurting poor folk in his state. We have to mobilize in that state and in D.C. and put that on the table. We have to shift this to a moral fight, not just a fight between him and Manchin. So our work is not over. But we also have to challenge those, even in our own community, say, well, we're going to meet with him in the back room. Back room appeals without a front room and a street game is weak. It only allows somebody like Manchin to delay. It only allows him to distort and claim to be a moderate and that he's doing the best for the country. And it only allows him to devalue what you're trying to pass, because he's trying to say, oh, I'm concerned about inflation. I'm concerned. He's lying. And the only way you can change him is just like we had to do it in Selma and Montgomery. You have to bring those things to the 21st century, put a face on it. And that's a little different now. But you have to make him have to fight his own people. And so I hope that Democrats and others don't just throw this away and say it's over because December. This is the season of birth. And Charles, let me just say this real quickly for your listeners that may be a little depressed. Do you know almost every one of our major civil rights movement began in December, not ended? The Montgomery bus boycott began in December. The Selma to Montgomery, some of that began in December. Dr. King preached his first sermon about starting the Poor People's Campaign in December. December is a time of birthing. And yes, you might have some crazy politicians around, hurting and harming people. That happened when Jesus was born. They had Herod, but they didn't stop. They birthed something. So now, in the midst of this, I'm glad he said some things he said today. I'm glad that he finally said the reason he doesn't agree with child tax credit is because he doesn't trust poor folk in his own state, mostly white, because they'll buy opioids and go farm. I want him to keep talking and keep saying what he's saying until it rouses the people. And then we in our community, that must be our job. If we can't get in those back rooms, we've got to put enough pressure in the front room to force the back room to shift. And so I don't think it's over if what has been done serves to embolden our agitation and embolden our discontent.
Consider what Biden said in October about the filibuster. What do you think that voting rights goes from here? If Manchin won't vote on this, do you think he has a better, he's more open to voting for voting rights?
Well, I've always had a problem with the delinking. Democrats made that. You don't delink or decouple voting rights from economic justice from bad policies like ending the filibuster. They should have never separated, and they should have never given him infrastructure. You and I talked about on this, that he wanted infrastructure. He should have never got. I was hoping and praying that Senator Warnock would have stood on the floor and said, I'm not voting for infrastructure. I mean, you gotta come with it in this moment. I'm not voting for infrastructure. I got one vote just like you until we pass voting rights. So we either gonna have to find some Republicans, I don't know if they can, that they can say, you want something and you can't get it unless you come with us. Or again, we're going to have to mobilize and mobilize and mobilize and mobilize and engage in direct action until we change the moral narrative. But I don't think Manchin will do anything until he is utterly embarrassed and utterly shown to be somebody whose policies are hurting his own people. And lastly, we have to stop repeating this lie that the corporate media is repeating. Trump won by 40% in West Virginia. Trump won by 40% of the people that voted in West Virginia. There are enough people in West Virginia who didn't vote because they're so sick of this foolishness, particularly the poor and low wealth. If they were mobilized, they could change that reality in West Virginia and a lot of other states. So we need to stop saying that 40% that West Virginia is for Manchin. 68% of West Virginians don't agree with Manchin. So Biden, I believe, now this is one thing the president should be doing. Number one, he should call to the Oval Office people from West Virginia and clergy leaders and meet with them and then let them come out and talk to me. We've been asking for that for 7 months. Let the people speak. Make this about them versus Manchin, not Manchin versus him. And number two, he got people voted for him in West Virginia. He's the president of the entire United States. Go to West Virginia. Now, you talk about Trump all you want, but Trump would have gone to West Virginia by now. And you talk about him all you want to, and I don't agree with 99.9% if he did, but he would have gone. President Biden, go to West Virginia, go to Arizona, talk to the people, and run this like a campaign and raise up the people. That's the only way we're going to win this.